Friends, David Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, and this is Huck TV. Yes, Huck, she is the mistress of the show, the executive producer, and she has been an exceptionally good girl, as normal. He's a good girl. He's a good puppy. Yes, yes. Yeah, the good girl. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you like that, don't you? Oh, that's a good girl. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. She'll be hanging with us, making sure I do an honorable job today. And today's one of those sit down, get a coffee, grab a tea, get a croissant, put your feet up, and sit back, because this is going to be a roller coaster of a ride. Before I get going, a story came out of Alaska that is worth reading. And the Associated Press came out with it May 30th. Dateline Alaska. An Alaska man who was pinned face down in an icy creek by a 700-pound boulder for 3 hours survived the ordeal with only minor injuries, thanks in part to his wife's quick thinking and lots of luck. Kel Morris's wife held his head above the water to prevent him from drowning while waiting for rescuers to arrive after Morris was pinned by the boulder, which crashed onto him during a hike near a remote glacier south of Anchorage. His second stroke of luck came when a sled dog tourism company that operates on the glacier overheard the 911 dispatch and offered up its helicopter to ferry rescuers to the scene, which was inaccessible by all-terrain vehicles. Once rescuers arrived, it took 7 men and inflatable airbags to lift the boulder as he drifted in and out of consciousness. The water in Alaska isn't cold. It's freezing. Yes, it's freezing. It's coming out of a glacier. So to think that you can lay in that water and not get hypothermia and die it's an amazing feat in and of itself. Morris, 61, said he realizes he is probably the luckiest man alive. And luckier that I had such a great wife, he said Thursday. Yeah. His wife, Jo Roop, is a retired Alaska state trooper. They moved to Seaward, about 120 miles south of Anchorage, from Idaho last fall when she took a job with the local PD. Last Saturday, they wanted to avoid the big crowds and converge on the Kenai Peninsula community during holidays and decided to hike near Godwin Glacier in an isolated and undeveloped trail behind a state prison. Seaward Fire Chief Clinton Kreitz said the trail was actually a rocky creek bed lined with large boulders deposited by the glacier. Morris said he noticed dangerous boulders weighing up to 1,000 pounds along the banks of the creek and avoided them the best he could until he ran into an area he couldn't pass. I was coming back and everything, the whole area slid out from under me, he said. He said things became a blur as he tumbled down the embankment 20 feet, landing face down in the water. Then he immediately felt the boulder hit his back in what Kreitz described as basically an avalanche of boulders. The way Morris landed, there were rocks under him, in between his legs, and around him that caught the weight of the boulder, preventing him from being crushed. Pure luck. But the massive rock still had him pinned, and Morris felt intense pain on his left leg and waited for his femur to snap. When it first happened, I was doubtful that there was. His wife tried to free him for about 30 minutes, putting rocks under the boulder and trying to pull him off before she left to find a cell signal. Amazingly, she only had to walk 300 yards to connect with 911 and relied on her law enforcement experience to send exact GPS coordinates to dispatch. A volunteer at the neighboring Bear Creek Fire Department heard the call while working at the sled dog tourism operation and diverted the helicopter used to ferry tourists to the scene. Ultimately, firefighters who couldn't navigate their all-terrain vehicles over the boulder field jumped out of the helicopter in time. Morris was hypothermic from cold water running off the glacier, Kreitz said, and his wife was holding his head out of the water. I think if we hadn't had the private helicopter to assist, it would have taken us at least another 45 minutes to get to him, and I'm not sure that would have been enough time. The firefighters used 2 airbags normally reserved to extract people from wrecked vehicles to lift the boulders. But then it just became an all-hands brute force 1, 2, 3 push, Kreitz said, and 7 guys were able to lift it enough to pull the victim out. An Alaska National Guard helicopter lifted them out of the creek bed with a rescue basket. Morris spent 2 nights in a local hospital for observation, but walked away unscathed. Quote, I fully anticipated a body recovery, not him walking away without a scratch, Kreitz said. Morris, who is now reflecting on his ordeal at home, acknowledged that it might have been a little wake-up call to stop doing things like at this age. I was very lucky. God was looking after me, he said. He said when he and his wife go hiking this weekend, they are going to stick to established trails. Here's a picture of them. Now, why did I read that to you? The reason you hike in pairs. I guarantee he would be dead if his wife wasn't there. Number 1, she was holding his head out of the water. That gets very tiring if you can't do that yourself. The hypothermia, the water, everything about it just drains you of energy. It's a huge ordeal, folks. She was able to go out and get a cell signal. Because of her emergency training, her calmness, her ability to get GPS, that saved her husband's life. This is why I tell you to hike in pairs. The other point of this, he was hiking off trail, or they were hiking off trail, which is fine if you're in pairs. If you were alone, we wouldn't even be reading about this because he just would have been another deceased male. Yeah, I'm impassioned about it. I'm impassioned because quick thinking, great survival skills, and the ability for people to come together, like the helicopter used for that dog sled team was used to save him. My gosh, that's outstanding. Outstanding. All right. Oh, one other thing I was going to tell you. See if I can find it real quick. I'm sorry. So, 2 people fell 380 to 400 feet in Bryce Canyon. And this happened on May 29th. Utah Department of Public Safety sent a helicopter in to try to get the victims. They eventually got to the victims and both were deceased, a man and a woman. And what is phenomenal is as they're flying over the scene, they see like a little tiny piece of luggage on the ground. And the helicopter pilots both said, hey, we don't pick up luggage. And one of the other police officers there said, hey, just go get it for us, would you? They didn't say why. They didn't know why. So they pick up this little piece of luggage. They drop a man down on a steel line. He picks up the luggage. They get up to the helicopter. He jumps in. He puts it down. You know what was in the little luggage? A little kitty. It was a very old cat. The cat was alive, and it was being held by the 2 people who fell over the cliff. They both died. The cat lived. They get the cat in the helicopter, and it's in rough shape. It was moving, it was alive. They took the cat to a vet right away. They started to rehab it, and they noticed it had severe breathing issues. And what they did was they transported the vet to a hospital in Las Vegas for advanced care because they found that one of the lungs had collapsed. Oh, it was such an old cat that nobody wants old cats. Guess what? That woman, the female helicopter pilot, adopted the cat. And now she said she has 2 cats and a dog. Everybody's getting along great. Everyone's healthy. Kindness. Kindness. She said that she couldn't walk away from the cat. She wanted to give it its last couple of years a good life. It's a good person. Good person. And the cat's name is Mirage. That's what they named it. And the helicopter pilot was Chelsea Tugaw, Tugaw, that adopted the cat. Man, that's just a great story. That's a great story. I like those. They said that the people that fell and died had climbed over a barrier for some reason, maybe trying to get a selfie. I don't know. But the cat lived. All right. The story I'm going to tell you today, it's a heartbreaker. It's a serious heartbreaker. And it was sent to me by somebody saying, Dave, I don't know if this is a missing 411 case, but it really hit a note with me. And I dove into it with both feet. And it hit a note with me, folks. That's why you're going to hear it. I guess if you believed everybody that I'm going to relate to you, whatever they said, then it could be a 411 story. But you're not gullible, and neither am I. But here's the story. A girl named Kim Moreau, 17 years old, went missing May 10th, 1986 at 11 o'clock at night. So she was a junior at Jay High School in Jay, Maine. She lived with her parents and her sisters, and she participated in cheerleading and gymnastics at the high school. She always wanted to be a model, and she actually participated in the Miss Maine pageant. "5'7", 130 pounds. Well, on May 10th, she was scheduled to attend the prom on May 11th with her boyfriend. Well, they got into a pretty serious argument, and they called off the prom, and she was pretty crushed. As anyone would be. And that night, a friend of hers calls her up and says, hey, why don't you go out with me and a couple of friends, and we'll party around and have a good time. She goes, okay, get my mind off my ex. So she goes out, and she meets with her friend named Rhonda Breton. And Rhonda brings along her 2 friends, a man named Brian Enman and another man named Darren Jawdry. Darren and Brian are 25. So they drive around the night, and they're partying. That's all they said. They were partying. At 11 o'clock, Kim gets dropped back at her house. And she's seen briefly by her sister, Karen. Kim comes in the house and drops off her purse, takes off her coat. I'm not sure what else she did, maybe use the restroom. And Karen says, where are you going? And she goes, I'm just going to go out for an hour. I'll be right back. And she says, no, don't go out. Come on, stay in and hang out with us. And she says, no, I'm going to go for an hour and I'll be back. Well, at 11 o'clock, it was 39 degrees in Jay, Maine. It was a cold night. But she went out without her coat. She didn't come home that night. So on May 11th, her parents and her sister are calling everybody they can, trying to figure out where Kim was. Not normal for her. Now, her mom later said that they weren't real hip on her being a friend with Rhonda. Rhonda kind of participated with a crowd that her parents didn't like. So for 2 days, the parents, sisters are calling everybody trying to figure out where Kim's at. They finally give up. May 13th, parents call the Franklin County Sheriff and report Kim as a missing person. Police come out, take a report, and the attitude is just like normal police, especially at that time. They thought she was a runaway. They don't want to take it seriously. But the parents know, hey, our daughter doesn't do this. This isn't normal. And she didn't have any ID. She didn't have any credit cards, bank cards, cash. She had nothing. She didn't even have a coat. And in Maine, at night, you need a coat. So 3 months go by. August 5th. Parents are putting out flyers, trying to stay busy, trying to keep their mind active. Kim's front and center in their mind. They still call everybody occasionally asking if, hey, have you heard from Kim? Have you seen her? Her father made a public statement about what was going on, and he criticized the police for their lack of effort. He said that they had searched Kim's purse and they found some pills, and they gave those to the police because they wanted them analyzed, and nobody ever said what they were. They also turned a bag of white powder over to the Maine State Police, and the state police came back and said that was cocaine. So both the parents at this point said that they believed her disappearance was related to the drug world somehow. So 13 days later, August 18th, Kim's parents had corresponded with a psychic. They were looking for anything. Psychic told them to search the area around their home, just down the street a little bit. And they got some private searchers to help, and they found human remains. Police were called. Human remains were not Kim. But they never said who the human remains were. I gotta say that I'm giving the psychic a B on that. He wasn't Kim, but there were human remains there. And then they expanded the search to the entire city of Jay, Livermore, and Chesterville. No more remains were found. Two years after Kim disappeared, her mom dies of cancer, leaving everything to her dad and sisters. Richard, the father, had a picture of Kim, and he asked the daughters to blow it up, and they're going to put it on the wall in the house. And every time somebody comes over, he's just going to point to it and say, yeah, that's my daughter. We need to be searching for her. The Maine police said that during the first 2 years, they got lots of leads that said that they had seen Kim in different cities. As I've told you before, that's really normal. Nothing unusual about that. And then there was a very long spell without leads, evidence, or suspects. And it was at about this time that the entire case file was turned over to the Maine State Police, which was probably a good idea. More resources, bigger agency. Now, one of the men that Kim had been with in that car that night was a man named Brian Enman. He's now 64 years old, still alive. Police knew that he had purchased land near his home, and the police got some information that justified a search warrant of Enman's property. It was 5 acres in Canton, Maine. Now, to get a search warrant is not an easy thing, folks. Some people may think it is, it's not. If you get somebody that's saying, hey, there's a body on the ground at that guy's house, that statement in itself is going to get you a search warrant of that property. You need a little more than that. You need to, first of all, make that informant a reliable informant, not just some passing statement off the street. So they had something that convinced the judge that police need to go search that property. Now, search warrant isn't an option. Once you have a search warrant signed by a judge, it's an order by the judge to go search the property. It's not like the police can say, I'm not going to do it. No, it's an order by the judge. You are going to do it. So they went out and they searched the property. It was reported that they had a cadaver dog hit on that property. They didn't say anything else about it. But in 2004, Enman got a building permit to build a home on the land. Now, does that mean that he had a cement foundation? I don't know. Did he have a cement floor? I don't know. For 4 days, these cadaver dogs, backhoes, medical examiners were on scene, and geologists from the University of Maine, all assisting in how they were evaluating the property and where they were digging. It was a 4-day intensive effort, and the police later said that they had no new evidence of a crime or of Kim. It was probably, from what I could tell, the best shot that they had of any evidence pointing to where Kim may be. This was it. Now, Enman was questioned by the police. He said that he and Jodry had been drinking and doing cocaine that night. He claimed that he did pick up Kim near her house at 11 o'clock that night. They drove around until 3:45 in the morning. That's what he says. He says that she was still distraught about breaking up with her boyfriend and not going to the prom. And that depressive nature, he says, she told him to drop her off a half a mile from her residence so she could walk home quietly and clear her mind. He said that he did that. She got out of the car, she was fine. It was the last time that he saw her. Believe it? Well, the police told Kim's father what Enman stated, and his statement was insightful. Richard, the father, says it's not true. He said that it was in the mid-30s that night in Maine. and Kim didn't have her coat. It would have been a very cold half-mile walk home. And he added that Kim never liked to walk alone in the dark because she was afraid of the dark. Well, does that change your opinion on what Inman said? Inman has no wife or children. And the Maine police was stated that he is a person of interest in the case. They've never stated whether they asked him to take a polygraph or if he did. Again, it's a tool. It would have been front and center with me. In 2025, Kim's sister Diane and her dad Richard sat down and gave an interview. They stated that in the past, the communications between them and the police haven't been too good. But right now it's good. They said that there's an email chain between retired detectives that have worked the case and the current detectives that are working it. And that all of the new evidence is put front and center in front of everyone. Now, do you want to know why I told you this case? I saw Richard's interview. I listened to what he had to say. He stated that he's going to be 83 in June, and his health is declining. And he truly wants to find his daughter. Richard still lives in the house where Kim was last seen. Remember, I've told you about this before. The parents of missing kids, they can't move out of that house. Most of them can't. They're grasping to that last memory. And I think in their mind, they're hoping if Kim's alive, that she knows where to find him. Now here's the weird part of this story. And it's all weird, but this is really weird. So Inman says that he was with Darren Jodry and Rhonda Breton that night and they were partying. Jodry, dead. Breton, dead. The only one alive is a person of interest. Inman. Richard said that he believes his daughter's deceased. But he believes the death was an accident. He says he doesn't care about the circumstances. He just wants his daughter back. My gosh. My gosh. That speaks of a man that's begging. Somebody tell him where the daughter's at. Please. Richard said that he thinks that he's going to find out in the next year. There's a $10,000 reward on the case that Richard put up. Diane, Kim's sister, was with Richard in this interview. She stated, "How would you feel that your loved one is out there somewhere? Nobody's searching for you. And they're slowly going to turn to dust. How would you feel?" imagine that there's someone with knowledge watching Richard die of old age and is not saying anything? What type of miserable creature does that to somebody? Police have said that they believe a crime occurred. And it's obvious because they got a search warrant. I did the video because if there's anybody in Maine, and I know that there's a lot of people in Maine that watch, but if there's anybody out there that has an infinitesimal amount of information, even a good hunch about this, call the Maine State Police. Don't bother Richard. Call the Maine State Police. And you know, if you were in that position of Richard, you knew your health was declining, your last wish is just to know your daughter's back. And if you're the person that's withholding that information from him, I hope you rot in hell. Seriously. Because I don't think that there's much worse you could do to somebody who's never done anything to you. Let us out.